Should you buy Far Cry 3 in 2022? Far Cry 3 is approaching its 10th year, which is insane now that I think about it, but almost every year I find myself returning to this entry in the series, in particular, most likely because of nostalgia, but it may just be the best game in the franchise. So I wanted to review Far Cry 3 in 2022 just to see if it was nostalgia or if it really was that good and ready to be played in 2022. I've completed Far Cry 3 countless times over the years, but as each year passes, the age does start to show, but, well, let me explain why. There's no spoilers, as always. Far Cry 3 was the first game in the franchise to use what many called the Far Cry formula. Big open world full of activities with an attempt at a decent story to give you more of an incentive to keep pushing through the game step by step. But how successful was Far Cry 3 at actually doing that? Well, let's start with a bit of story. You follow a character called Jason Brody, and I'm sure many of you who have played Far Cry 3 know that Jason Brody isn't a particularly interesting character, and of course that gets a lot of criticism, but I actually think he's the best protagonist we've got in a Far Cry game, not because he's well written or easy to connect with, but because he is quite literally a literally me character. What do I mean by that? Well, these kinds of characters are kind of empty, and you see this most often with the silent, stoic type of character. A great example is the Ryan Gosling character in Drive, named quite literally The Driver. These characters are designed for you to latch onto them, not because they are well written, but because it relies on you to project your own thoughts and feelings onto them because there is a lack of character for them. At least that's my sense of it. Jason still has some sort of character, but there's not enough there to really feel like you can connect with this guy, so you kind of push yourself onto him, and I think that's what they were going for, because the whole game's plot device or kind of thing they're trying to get across in the gaming format, like this kind of thing they're actually trying to tell, an actual story before microtransactions and all that stuff, was that you're kind of becoming this crazy killer, if you kind of get what I mean. You're just this normal bloke playing a game, you've just bought this game, and now you just want to kill people. It's one of those kinds of games. They tried to do a Last of Us 2, I'll say less about that, but you know, I thought it was quite good. Sure, Far Cry 4 had a similar character, but he never spoke, making him pointless, but Jason strikes a nice balance of completely annoying and cringeworthy, yet I personally managed to look past it because I just ignored his dumbass and projected my own thoughts onto the character in various situations. Obviously no spoilers, so I can't go into detail, but if you do play Far Cry 3, you will hopefully understand what I'm trying to say. Basically, Jason is a terrible character with pretty awful and rushed development, yet it works because, well, who cares about Jason? It's about you. Ooh, I felt good saying that. Ooh. Sure, that's a pretty cheap cop-out, but hey, it worked for me, so who's to say it won't work for you? You've just got to experience it yourself and kind of come up with your own ideas and thoughts around it. We will get to some of the side characters in a minute, but let's talk gameplay. Far Cry 3 is simply gorgeous. This was released on the PS3 and Xbox 360 and it still looks this good. Of course it was 720p on older consoles, but it still looks incredibly good for its age. But looks mean nothing if there is nothing to do, and thankfully there is a lot to do in this open world, a lot more than Far Cry 5. Naturally, you do have the Far Cry formula. As I mentioned, you wipe out bandit camps, varying in difficulty as you explore the world and climb towers to reveal more of the map. As you do these activities, you unlock various side activities varying from bounty hunting to animal hunting, ancient relic hunting, basically a lot of hunting, with each of these activities rewarding you with money and special animal skins for the best upgrades in the game. Yes guys, hunting actually has a reason to exist in Far Cry 3, unlike some of the newer games. Why they removed the hunting aspect from the newer games, I don't understand. Maybe there was some criticisms of it getting a bit repetitive, but now all we have is you hunt animals and you sell them for money rather than them being placed in the world meaningfully as you progress, so you can upgrade these items or rucksacks, etc, etc. You know what I mean? That aspect really helped the gameplay loop, and I don't understand why they removed it. Along with these activities, you have various little side objectives you can do, like collecting memory cards at specific enemy camps to unlock special weapons, or you can focus on climbing those towers to unlock free weapons instead of using your hard-earned cash to buy weapons, which was usually the way I went. There's a bunch of mini-games like knife throwing, shotgun challenges, RPG challenges, and even poker. Yes, poker, and yes, I spent a lot of time playing poker, much like I spend a lot of time playing poker in games for some reason, but I'm too much of a pussy to play it in real life. Yeah, that's me. That you subscribe to that. Hey. Well, I don't know if you subscribe to that. Most surprisingly, every time I replay Far Cry 3, I just never get bored of these activities despite their repetitive nature. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely think Ubisoft struck the perfect balance of story and open world content here. With each new entry into Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, any of their open worlds, etc., they always feel the need to go bigger rather than denser, and I really do think it harms the quality of the sequels heavily. 18 towers and 34 bandit camps is more than enough. Please, Ubisoft, stop making more and make more quality stuff. Stick with the 18 towers. Stick with the 34 bandit camps. I really don't think people will mind climbing the 18 towers because I think it's perfectly balanced, but you may disagree. Leave your comments down below, but for me, it's the perfect amount of content for an open world game. And what I mean by the perfect amount is it's just enough before I get bored of it. You always have these moments in Ubisoft games now where you get halfway through the game and you're just sick of it, you're tired of it, because they're too long. I know it's a cliche for reviewers to complain about long games, but I mean it. Ubisoft games in particular, even for normal people, are way too long. Some of them, like, sure, The Witcher 3 had the same issue, but there was various additional content to it that actually spiced the gameplay up, but Ubisoft is the same thing over and over again for like 100 hours, and I just don't want to do that. This game is about 20 hours long. That's perfect. That's perfect. Maybe you want more? I don't know. Leave your comments down below. It really does feel like they perfected that Far Cry formula on their first shot, which is kind of amazing to me, but I did just mention story, so maybe we should head back to those side characters. Yeah, most of Jason's friends are complete ass. I do not care for them. Sure, they are different to each other, but you don't see them enough to connect with them, and the ending really relies on this dynamic, and it falls flat, like it falls 2,000 miles per hour flat into the hard, cold pavement. It's kind of laughable, actually. It's that they think you should care. I didn't really care at all between the two choices. You'll see them if you play the game. I'm not going to spoil it, but it really relies on it too much. That being said, the other side characters, specifically the villains, are incredible. Vaas, you know the guy, you know him, the guy that has all the best lines in the game, the guy that has an entire DLC dedicated to him in Far Cry 6. Yeah, that guy is incredible. Every scene Vaas is in, he steals. Michael Mando's performance is genuinely phenomenal. Like, he sold this character to me. Every time I play Far Cry 3, I just want more and more of him, but he's just not in Far Cry 3 enough. Without spoiling anything, a new villain comes in at the halfway point. It's not really a major spoiler because he's shown at the start of the game. And, well, there are a lot of villainous characters throughout, but the new villain kind of takes center stage, and this villain called Hoyt isn't a bad character at all. I actually really enjoy what they did with his crazy ass, but Vaas is just a more interesting character overall, so I wish we got more time with him, as I'm sure many of you guys did too if you have played it. But hey, we got the Far Cry 6 DLC. I still haven't played the Far Cry 6 DLC. I might review that. I'm not too sure. It's been out for too long. I don't think people really care, but you know. Then again, I'm talking about a game that's 10 years old. What am I doing? You've got Buck, who apparently likes to fuck, as well as characters like Dennis and Citra that all have pretty chunky roles compared to Jason's friends or Vaas himself, unfortunately. Oh, and I cannot forget the amazing soundtrack. Beautiful, yet haunting. A really great soundtrack. That's all I'll say. You've got to listen to it. You've got to listen to it to really feel it. That being said, I won't say any more on characters as I don't want to spoil anything accidentally, but overall the story is well paced, but it just fails to deliver that punchy ending it really needs to solidify itself as a great story. It's serviceable overall, but now let me talk more in depth in gameplay because, well, there is a lot to go through, so bear with me. If you're enjoying this review, remember to smash that like button. Shut the fuck up! We're at 9,600 subscribers. It's insane, guys. Thank you. Shut the fuck up! So, gameplay is a mix of all-out action and stealth. It's completely up to you with some caveats with the side content. The enemy camps do give you more XP for being stealthy, which is kind of odd, as it's so much easier going in stealthy, since if you get caught, you get an onslaught of enemies coming at you, making it more difficult, but I guess Ubisoft thought it would be better to reward stealth, which I get, because you do have a lot of options stealth-wise. You can go in guerrilla style, getting up close and personal with your machete, chaining kills, or sniping from a long distance, making the enemies panic. It's up to you. It's up to you how you want to tackle these, but you do get more XP being stealthy. You get a bunch of weapons, all customizable, like snipers, pistols, shotguns, flamethrowers, RPGs, a bow, hell, even a repair tool, and a flare gun. You get a flare gun, so you've got plenty of options here, suiting different playstyles and loadouts depending on what skills you decide to upgrade first. Speaking of skills, you have a lot of them here, and most are actually quite useful. You can unlock more health bars, or focus on unlocking new takedowns to be more effective, or simply make yourself more resistant to explosions if you like going in all guns a-blazing like myself. You also have a decent crafting system, which requires you to hunt hunt specific animals to unlock more inventory space or weapon holsters, etc. And this sort of stuff is missing in new Far Cry games like Far Cry 5. Those games have animals, but it's really pointless hunting any of them, as I said earlier, because why? There's no crafting system. You can make some money, but who cares? You're just going to pick up a gun from the enemy anyway, so why hunt animals? There's no point. Not only do you have a crafting system for upgrades, but you can also pick plants to create some really cool buffs for yourself, making you sprint faster or resistant to fire when you decide to burn a field of, well, good grass, which by the way is a great mission. Now this all sounds great, but there are some glaring age-related issues, and one of them is AI. Now the new Far Cry games have terrible AI as well, but it's really obvious here. A lot of enemies will just watch you walk by or completely ignore an obvious sniper shot, which can make things really easy, but then sometimes this does a complete 180 and the enemies can see you from miles away for almost no reason. So while that can be irritating, I appreciated it because it actually made Far Cry 3 more challenging at some points. So the AI is a mixed bag, but is clearly aging pretty poorly with every passing year. But let's be honest, it doesn't seem like Ubisoft wants to improve AI judging by their previous Far Cry games that came out recently, and Assassin's Creed games, and pretty much any game they've made in the last 5 years. Yeah, great. Some of the weapons are pretty overpowered too. I personally love the shredder, which you get from picking up those memory cards I mentioned, and it quite literally shreds through enemies. Every single enemy in the game, you shred them. It's amazing. And they're dead. It's so good. It's overpowered though, so I don't recommend using it because it can kind of ruin your experience. So I went back to the bow and the sniper, but that's just me. And sure, it's an overpowered gun, but it's a single player game. You know, we'll get to the multiplayer bit. I haven't really played much of it, but it's an overpowered gun. But, you know, you can choose not to use it. You can choose not to use it if you want a more difficult experience, and that choice is quite vital for an open world game. So I'm close to wrapping up, but I haven't talked about the co-op or the multiplayer, which sadly I didn't get a chance to play with some of our Discord members, because obviously I've got work outside of YouTube, so I don't have all the time in the world to play, but I will play with you guys, I swear to God. By the way, we have a Discord link. It's in the description. Come join. I promise I'll play with you guys. So overall, Far Cry 3 for me almost perfected the Far Cry formula, and I genuinely believe even after 10 years, anyone can hop into Far Cry 3 and have a good time, even in 2022. So should you buy Far Cry 3 in 2022? Abso-fucking-lutely, mate. Thank you for watching.